And welcome back to Wednesday, Open Studio, this Tokyo painting. What's happening, everyone? We are going to start jumping in on this little section right up here. I'm just kind of following the river, even though I should be kind of moving across. Do I want to do that? Yeah, I'm set up for that. Yeah. Basically what's going on is usually I move across. I know it's going to get really blurry, but see this section over here? This is pretty far. Well, it's not far, but it's lower than what I should be doing right now. I should, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I should just kind of motor across and finish that section there. But this part here is in focus, and I don't want to mess with it, so that is what we're going to do. Cool. Yeah, why the heck not? How is everyone doing tonight? Hopefully really well, or whenever you're watching this. Hope you're still doing well. Tonight, or today, or this video, or however you want to look at it, we've been kind of doing the foundations of art type of thing. I'm just going to start cutting some stuff out here like that. Because that little building right there is the one I'm going to be working on. Yeah. Let me put it here in focus right about there. Because I think the center of the screen is what I want focused. There you go. Just got to remember to keep whatever I'm painting right there. Anyway, we've been doing that kind of, foundations of art and, different things and talking about different stuff like color and composition and all that. And it's been great, and I'm going to keep doing that. But one I wanted to kind of circle around back to was inspiration. And I know it's not a foundation of art, or technique-wise, but I just got back from Los Angeles and I got to go to a bunch of museums and talk about inspiration. If you like doing art, or just like art, period, there is something to be said for seeing other art. And it's huge. And what I'm going to start out by saying is don't be like me. When I was younger, I kind of stayed in my lane. I knew what I liked. You guys have all heard the saying, I don't know what is it? I don't know what it is, but I know what I like it, or something like that. One of those things. And I was really kind of the same way. Like, I loved what I loved, and I didn't see the need to kind of step out of the box. If it wasn't what I was doing or what I was interested in, I didn't engage in it at all. So for me, as a younger person, going to museums didn't really interest me that much unless it was a show that specifically was artists that I knew, or that style of art that I really wanted to see. Looking back now, I realize that is very dumb. Young Steve wasn't really thinking the right way, and this is why. So, okay, you do know what you like, and you know what style of art you like, and you know what artists you like, and all that fun stuff. But being exposed to people who do things in a much different way than you do are going to feed into what you already do. I may be moving off camera here, hopefully not. That is the edge of the camera. I'll try to not go beyond that. So here's the thing. Everyone's looking for their style. Everyone's looking for, what makes me, and, how am I going to get my story told, or whatever it is, get my painting done. And everyone's looking for their own thing, right? They want to tell their story or express themselves in their own personal way. And that's usually a really important thing for an artist. Sometimes, again, who cares? Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes they just want to make stuff and they're happy with that. But I'm talking about the people who are in this to produce something that is going to stand the test of time and talk about who they are. And that's kind of what I'm addressing with this stuff. So to get your style, to get where you want to be, is all about the inspiration and the things you take from other artists. Anyone who says they're self-taught is lying to you, or they're lying to you, because if they're self-taught, they haven't had any experience or any kind of interaction with any other art, period, and that's impossible. You can't create art and not look at other art. You just can't. It's the same way as we talked about language before. It's very similar to saying that I'm not influenced by anyone. For my written stories, I don't read anything. I don't read anything else from anyone else, and that I just do my own thing. So that's not a real thing. You know what I mean? That's not reality. Again, I get it. Some people feel like I'm going to do this little section down here too. I don't know if I already got it, but I'm going to get it anyway. It's not living in reality. We don't live in a bubble. And as much as we'd love to say, hey, I invented the wheel even after it's been invented, but I still invented the wheel on my own. I did all this on my own. It's not based in reality. We interact with people all the time. We interact with things that they're doing. And if you're an artist, you can't operate completely outside of everyone. You can certainly limit your interaction with people, but to say that this is it, I'm totally outside of everything is not. That's not really a thing. All right, this area back here right along the shore is really green, but I'm going to kind of lay it in, and I know you can't see this. Oh, you can. Okay. It's just not in focus. I'm going to kind of lay this in right now just to kind of finish the story on the background, but I'm not going to do the road or anything because I'm going to do the road all in one shot probably. But this will just kind of set that edge of the road in for me and also finish this, kind of area. So back to LA. So I went to LA this past week, and I got to go to a few museums. The Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, the Broad Museum, the LA County Art Museum, and hopefully editing Steve is not having a seizure trying to put pictures up of all these, but you get the idea. And it was amazing. It was amazing. Again, filled with especially contemporary art and art that is not, really like some stuff is a lot different than what I do. But my point is, it was an amazing experience because what I do is I see these things that even if they're outside of what I do, well outside of what I do, I still take something away from it. And I don't even mean to. It's like you see something, you're like, wow, that really hits me in this way. That makes me think this way, or that makes me feel this way. And what I was finding I was doing, and I've been doing this for a while since I realized, that actually looking at other people's art is a cool thing and not just like a bad field trip kind of thing, as younger Steve would do. It fires you up in ways that you're not prepared for because, again, it's not the way you would do it. So, granted, you're not going to see something and then say, okay, I was a representationalist artist or I was a impressionist artist, but I saw a piece of photorealism, so now I'm going to paint photorealistically. Or I paint photorealistically and I saw some abstract work that really hit me, so I'm going to change everything I do and paint abstractly. I mean, you might give it a shot and see what's up with it if it really had an impact on you. But more than that, what I found I do now these days, as older Steve is less stupid than younger Steve, is that I'll look at a piece of abstract art and say, okay, what hit me on that? Is it the color? Is it the contrast? Is it the repetition and variation? All the things we were just talking about. What in that piece really gets to me? Then I can take whatever that is, whether it is the repetition or use of color or whatever it is, and then I can go back to my work and see if I can apply that to what I'm working on in my style. And when you do that, it alters your style just a little bit, but through your lens, and it makes it even more your own. It's not your take on someone else's art. It's not your take on an abstract artist or impressionist or cubist or whatever it would be. It's your interpretation of that and how it affects you and what you do with it. And it's just, like I said, man, going to like a big place that has like seriously crazy artists, and I mean that in the most technical way. I am a process-driven artist, and I love watching and seeing art that I can't understand how they did it. I love that. And that could be, again, that simple thing could be any style of art. I could look at it and say, holy crap, how do they do that? And it doesn't have to be a certain type of art. Yeah, in my type of art, I can look at someone else's work who works in my style, and I can see a lot more in it because I'm used to it, and I know the vocabulary in a way. But even more so with that kind of art, if it's something that I do and I see something I don't understand, that is like the home run. That's over the top, because then I really got to know what's going on with that. But if it's another piece, again, it still works the same way. It's like, what colors, how did they get the canvas to look that way underneath everything? And it just drives you crazy in a great way. So that's really what I wanted to kind of talk about tonight is this inspiration from others in a place that you might not even expect it. And again, you could be looking at ancient Greek pottery or native textiles or candle making. I don't know. It could be anything. But the point is you're not going to know it until you stumble across it. And that's the key. You got to go looking for it. Again, if you're happy staying in your lane and you're happy doing what you're doing and you're good, you don't want to like go from there, then stay there. There's no problem with that at all. There's no judgment. There's no whatever. The problem is though, there's little growth there too. So keep that in mind. You may feel real comfortable, but as soon as you're comfortable, you're not growing. So there's your other little tidbit of whatever. All right, so let's get painting while I'm cutting. So that's what I did. I cut out all this fun stuff. Let me show you this from the back side so you can really get a feel for it. But I've cut out a bunch of stuff here. This will give me a lot to work from. And again, like we talked about before, oh, I didn't do that. Sorry, distracted. Squirrel. Because oh wow, this is great. Really was a squirrel moment. I have no idea what I was talking about. I don't know. I'm painting stuff. Let's continue to paint stuff. I'll look back when I'm editing this and I'm like, oh my God. All right. La 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 la. Oh, it's clearing that. I'll clear that out later. All right. Let's do this with a little bit of black, I think. And again, you can just barely see it off the edge down here. But what's nice is I focused on this stuff here when I was lining up. I was looking at the road and the buildings here. And that's all great. That lined it up. But where my double check is this is a stencil I used before for this white stuff way down here in the corner, the right-hand corner, right below the palette here. And I wasn't looking at that, but when I lined all this up and everything seemed okay, if I glance down here and these are also lined up, that's a really good sign. That means everything is rolling right along. So we're happy with that. All right. I'm continuing on. I know I keep talking about it, but when I'm doing a long painting like this, I always have the frame stuff in the back of my mind, and I've been working out this security thing for these paintings so that once they're on the wall, it's very difficult to get them off without the right tools. And again, this is something that I picked up from being around the museum all the time. I'm just going to kind of put in a little bit of black here to kind of get this started. And so the security thing was important as I kind of was looking at smaller works in museums and noticing how they were making sure that they didn't go anywhere, which is really important. And especially with these really small works, anything you can pluck off the wall and, put in your jacket, you don't want to give anyone a chance to do something stupid. So I've been coming up with, there is a standard method to securing small artwork to the wall, but I came up with a little bit different method because my paintings are so small, and I'm working that out. It'll definitely be used on this painting, but I'm working on a few right now that I may use as guinea pigs. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, that's lovely. That is just stunning. All right, I gotta find a decent copy that hasn't been cut out so I can use that as reference. This one will do nicely. You are not gonna see that because you guys are mega close. And that's wonderful. All right, that's good. All right, la 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 la. All right, let's get on this. So let me start with the building that I can see the most, and that's this little guy right here, right in the center. We are still focused. Good. Looks like it has some sort of coppery type roof. So that's what we're gonna do. A lot of this paint is dried up. I was away for a week and The palette kind of dried out, so we'll see what we can do with it. I did put out some white and black earlier. I was working on some stuff, so we have some paint that's still viable here. Yeah, nice. Okay. So yeah, so that's my big takeaway from this last week. I personally, so there's your overall takeaway. What you guys can take away personally. I had, like I said, whenever I go to a place like, any kind of museum of whatever, of fine art, a big time museum. LA is certainly, in that they have some amazing museums with some amazing art. It humbles me first, it makes me realize where I stand in this, and for me, I always feel like I'm somewhere down the bottom, which is beautiful because it always gives me somewhere to go. It's like, my biggest fear is to ever feel like, I'm it, I made it. You know what I mean? If I feel like that, then I'm screwed, or delusional, or both. So to walk into a place like MoCA and see just, the most amazing artwork. And not only that, too, from a purely, again, I'm real like process driven, but not only the artwork, but also its presentation and how it's put out there and that kind of thing, to see like some of these really heavy duty museums and how they really kind of, oh, this thing is totally dry. How they present artwork is always fascinating to me, and it got me back here, coming back to rural Midwest, United States, in nowhere, Ohio, and it made me realize that there are a lot of things that I need to do with my artwork, and not only its presentation, like that security thing, but also in the way that it will ultimately be displayed. So when I am in a show and I'm not in control of that show, the tags, for instance, are done for the show by the people who are putting on the show. That's fine. But if I have a solo show, I have a lot of say in what everything looks like and how it's presented. So I need to be more prepared for that situation than I am now. And I realize that, like I'm like, if the LA County Museum of Art called me tomorrow and said, hey, we saw some of your stuff and we'd really love to, give you a small show, I am not prepared for that right now. And that's what I came away with. Now, I'm not to say I'm not prepared totally. Like, I have the way that I normally display my work. But again, after seeing what I saw, I don't have a setup that's at that level. And I want to make sure that everything I do is at the level that, matches the goal that I want to have for my work. And for me, this is another thing too. We talked a little bit in the beginning about, if you're happy in your lane and you're just doing it and, that's it, then great, that's awesome. But for me, like, I want to know that what I'm doing will be around for a long time, that, this is my voice when I'm gone. I have a few ways to keep my voice out there, and my number one way is my kids. My kids will remember me, and that's the nice thing. But let's face it, in 2 or 3 generations, I'm just going to be a name on a piece of paper to our family, and that's fine and everything. But this stuff here the artwork will allow me to kind of continue my story long after. It's just a way for me to, like I said, keep telling that story. What was important in my life, what changed my life, what I don't know, like I said, what's important, and at the end of the day, I hope it means something to someone. And, just by the fact you guys are here, that's reinforced. And again, I'm humbled by that every day. And I want to make sure that I put out there enough to make that worthy of people who are looking. You know what I mean? So that's where my head is at with all that. So in order to do that, like I said, I have to take this as seriously as possible. I have to, treat the stuff as if it is going to be around for a long, long time. And lovely. And then I did the best I could. I did the best I could telling the story. I did the best I could keeping the stuff or making the stuff in a way that will allow it to last a long time and all that fun stuff. So again, that boils down to being able to tell the story for me and being able to do it in the way that I feel it needs to be told. And that's the big thing. All right, so I'm going to start plugging in these buildings here as I kind of run across them and hopefully get it to make sense. Because it's funny, this little gray section here, now I can see that it's a bunch of buildings in the reference material, where in here it's just a big blob. So I got to make sure I trail across this thing slowly and in the right way so that I do this correctly, so I don't end up with a bunch of buildings that don't make any sense. So yeah, so that's my takeaway from LA, and it happens. I apologize every time I go away. I'll come back with the same kind of crazy, being all fired up. It happens every single time, and it's not. Sometimes it happens when I'm looking at like reproductions, like if I'm looking at a catalog or a book or something. That'll do it. Certainly the what's going on here? I'll start with this one. Certainly like a high quality program book, like a hardcover book from an artist that did a major show. It's common when you have a big time show to have a book that goes along with that show. So seeing those kind of has the same impact as being there, but not really the same as actually seeing them. Scale has a lot to do with it. My work is like that. Even on the total opposite end of the spectrum, when you have a 9-foot painting, the scale makes a huge difference. Being there in front of it makes a gigantic difference because you can't pick up the scale, the magnitude of that painting in a book. When you're standing in front of this 9-foot painting, it affects you differently. Just as my paintings affect you differently when you see them live. You know what I mean? It's like they're right there, but you have to really do all the physical things to see them. You have to get really close and squint your eyes, or maybe have a magnifying glass, and then you can step back away a little bit and get the full effect of what's going on there in total. So my work is very, is designed to be seen live as well. So again, I'm going to push you guys. You go to as many art museums as you can. They're not the same as you used to, like I said. I mean, I love art, and museums were always like field trips to me. You know what I mean? You just get on the bus and you get a day out of school and that's it. And that was the truth all the way through college, which makes me embarrassed. And that took a long time to catch up from, to fix. It's like for a long time, people would be like, oh, what's your favorite artist? And I'd have my list of artists that I really liked, and that was it. Instead of having this kind of bank of all kinds of different artists that have influenced, your work and your life and your whatever. So I really have a lot of regret about that I didn't really have the same appreciation that I should have. Because I know my work would be a lot different now and a lot better and a lot farther along. I would pick up stuff. I'll give you another example. So the dollar bill painting that I'm working on now, this has been in the works for 20 years. Like I took the original reference photo 20 years ago in 2005. And it's a really personal piece. It has a lot of meaning to me. I would get stalled out emotionally on it. And yes, I know it just looks like two crumpled up dollar bills, but it's the story behind it. There really is, where all the emotion comes from. It's not really important to this story. However, it would stall me out, and it kept stalling me out. I restarted this painting 3 times and just couldn't get it going. So now it's going, and I feel good about it and where, what I'm doing with it. And yet I find that I'm looking at all these traditional, like just beautiful still lives that I had in my head the whole time and didn't even know it. And that's the feel that I wanted to get out of this real dark, this real dark kind of heavy, close focused type of still life, and at the time, I didn't even know that that's what I wanted, but I had seen something somewhere. It resonated with me as far as the mood that I was feeling when I was thinking about this. And that's how it kind of all ended up coming together in the very end. It took 20 years for me to figure that out, to say, okay, this is a style of art that I've always felt about this piece, and this is what I really feel like it should be. And now I have that vocabulary because I looked at other artists and got a feel for what they did to get their piece to that point. Now, again, it isn't, it's my photograph, it's my idea, it's my setup, it's my colors, all that fun stuff. But it's the inspiration that comes from those other artists that allowed me to finally say, okay, this is right. This is the way that this needs to be. This isn't just a paint a couple dollar bills, you know what I mean? Which is the way that it started. I knew what I wanted to paint. I knew the subject, and I knew what I needed it to kind of be as far as the crumpled paper and all that. But I didn't know the style, like not style meaning photorealistic, because I knew it would be kind of realistic. But the weight of it, the colors, the composition, the short focus, all that stuff came after. In understanding it by looking at, again, listening to other artists and having them say, hey, Steve, try this, you know what I mean? Without even them knowing it. So that's where the inspiration comes from. And, that dollar bill painting is big for me, and it was a stumbling block for a long time. And, you may not have an epic, idea rolling around in your head that you need, problem solving with. You may just have, a painting that you're working on that you're stalled out on, and you're not really coming up with any solutions for it. That's what going and checking out the other art will do for you. And again, I guarantee it, trust me, it'll hit you when you're looking at something that isn't even something that you would consider painting yourself. That's how it hits you. It's really cool that way. So I cannot stress that enough, boys and girls. I could talk about this all day because it is, again, just when I start to forget that and, get bogged down again, I'll go to the museum and it'll be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And again, I say museums, those are great, but art galleries work very similar. Again, the bigger and badder the art gallery, the heavier duty the painters or artists that are in it, those will all, really, really resonate well for you. If you're looking for a boost, you never want to look at someone else's work who's not where you are and feel better about yourself. But sometimes you need that. You know what I mean? If you feel like I'm not going very far, I'm flopping around on the bottom of the barrel. Sometimes perspective is really what you need, and then looking at someone else's work who's not quite where you, or is behind where you already are as far as your technique and your ability, you're not going to say, oh, I'm good because they're bad. It's not that. It's oh, I'm farther along than I realized. I don't suck eggs, So that's really important too. All right, I'm going to leave it there because we got about a minute left. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time. Instead of showing you the processed full-on shot, I'm going to show you this view. So this is actual size, but this is me holding this, or, my hand's in the picture anyway, so you can really see the scale of it. And I want to do this because that, again, what we just talked about, that when you see something out of context, it doesn't always give you the right feel for it. And we're looking at this painting in a certain way. You know, you're helping me paint this. So I wanted to give you the, like, if you leaned back type of look, and that's what this is. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, guys, please, please, please like and subscribe. If you know anyone who would enjoy this type of thing, your little ASMR airbrushing paintbrush thing, please share this video or pass it on, pass my channel on. That would be amazing. If you'd like to support us in a more financial way to keep the lights on here, that'd be extra amazing. And you could do what these lovely people have been doing, and that is you know, YouTube members get a 10% discount on anything on my website, and they get early access to the time-lapse video, and Patreon members also get a discount as well, and I'm working on some special content just for them. So that's what I got. Okay, so for Steve Leahy and Through Lachlan's Eyes and being all inspired, I will catch you guys next week. Have a great one.